Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, and today we're going to discuss the challenge of directly seeding crops after cover crops, the fundamentals of market gardening, and what one country's water management has taught me about life. So let's do it. All right. Well, hello, Tuesday. I hope your all's weeks are off to a reasonable start. It's been incredibly warm here and a little bit muggy, and we're looking at more of the same for the next 10 days or so. I still believe we'll get our blackberry winter. Has not yet appeared in the forecast. It doesn't always. So we'll see. But got our tomatoes planted in the tunnels finally last week. And again, that's about a week or so behind schedule for us. We usually want to go in about that first week of April. But the grafted plants take a little longer. However, they are really vigorous. I'm not imagining it will push us all that far behind. I planted Sweet Alyssum, brassica flower, right in between each of the plants for the beneficials. Big plants with nice white flowers. And it brings in particular, the braconid wasp, parasitic wasp of the tomato hornworm, which likes to come in later in the season when the heat starts to stress the plants out a bit and just strip them of leaves, which is not my favorite thing. I'll see birds in the high tunnel snacking on those as well, which I definitely approve of that. Okay, so I've somewhat humorously discussed soccer legend Johan Cruyff on this show several times, but one thing Cruyff said about soccer that I think is applicable to farming is that playing football is very simple, but playing simple football is the hardest thing there is. In other words, soccer, football, is a simple game, but it's not easy to keep it simple. The same thing could be said of market gardening. Growing food is really quite simple, but keeping it simple is complicated. What makes it complicated is, in some ways, the same thing that it would be in soccer. That is context. In soccer, it matters who the competition is, how they are set up, what their strengths are, their weaknesses, the weather, the state of your team, the state of theirs, all of that. No two games are the same in the same conditions, in the same way that no 2 years are exactly the same, with the same weather, the same seeds, your same mental or physical conditions. I think this is something that really hits new growers hard. There is just so much info out there that it feels like there is just too much to learn to really get started. But the thing is, it's the basics that are important, the fundamentals, as they say. As cool and interesting as things like microbes and rhizophagy and all of the, interesting biological and ecological things that you can learn about farming and about food, you don't have to have any idea what those are or how they work to grow food successfully. They make it fun, sure. They keep it interesting. I enjoy them. It's good nerdy stuff. Maybe some of the nerdier things can help solve some problems for you down the line, but that's not where you need to start. So what do you need to know? Where do you need to start? Well, I would say, like it is for soccer, focus on the fundamentals and build on that. For me, though I'm sure some other seasoned growers will have a different take on these, fundamentals for me in market gardening means first, learn how to grow a plant from seed to transplant. Get some seeds in some soil mix and grow those plants until they're a few inches tall. If you can get good at that in a greenhouse or under some grow lights or even in a windowsill in a city while you plan and plot your dream farm, you will have a basic understanding of what those crops will need to germinate in the field, because it is pretty much the same thing. Another fundamental thing is to know how to prepare soil. If you don't have any available mulches to you, it's about learning how to turn the soil over properly at the right time without damaging it too much or leaving it vulnerable to heavy rain and wind eroding it. This is something that, sure, I can teach you, or my book can teach you, or any market gardening book can teach you, really. But it's also something you can ask your neighbors about. The good old timers in your region will likely know more about your soil and context than I ever could, and can be an incredible asset and resource, even if your methods ultimately look very different from theirs. If you do plan to turn your soil over, also consult with a soil agronomist to figure out how to best maximize that effort. So that way you don't have to spend your early years of just learning how to grow something while also learning how to manage soil nutrition, which can be kind of complicated. That can, of course, just come later if need be. Also, mulching is fundamental to me, so learning the different mulches is important. Not every mulch is good for every context, so make sure to watch the mulch video for the more context on how to use each one. Next thing I would say is learn how to transplant those plants that you grow out. When to plant them, how to water them in, how to protect them with either insect netting or potentially some organic sprays or whatever you need to use. If you are working with a shallow tillage system, learn to cultivate. The less mulch that you have, the more cultivating you will need to do to know how to do that properly. Learn some irrigation basics, but don't feel like you have to learn everything about irrigation. It's complicated. Consult with somebody to help set up your system, and then slowly over time learn what works and what doesn't, and how pressure and flow rate affect your particular setup. Indeed, don't hesitate to hire a few things out like irrigation design and soil nutrition until you get a good handle on the other just more basic stuff. Also try your hand at composting too. You're going to have waste on your farm. You're going to have plants that you pull out and mulches or whatever, and you should know how to manage it and turn it into something you can use. How to get it going, how to get it moist, how to keep the heat, how to turn it efficiently, all those things. For me, I feel like those are my baseline fundamentals. Once you get growing, you can always start learning more of the nuanced stuff as it begins to become necessary to, for instance, fight a specific disease or pest, or perhaps increase the quality of a crop, or the flavor, or the vigor, or just as you get better, you'll have more time to nerd out on these things. There is a lot of info out there right now, and I know it can probably feel daunting, but again, farming is simple, but keeping it simple is a matter of focusing on the fundamentals and adding in the nuance as you grow and learn more about your context. Anyway, what fundamentals would you all add? Let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to take a quick break and then directly seeding after a cover crop. BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by FarmRaise. Still using QuickBooks for your farm's bookkeeping? You're wasting time and losing money. Farm finances can be overwhelming, but they don't have to be. FarmRaise Tracks is the all-in-one tool built just for farmers. Manage expenses, prep for taxes, run payroll, and plan for the future without spreadsheets or stress. Just clear, organized insights to keep your operation thriving. Thousands of farmers trust Tracks to make smart financial decisions all year long. It's time you did too. Use code NOTIL20, that's all caps, no spaces, NOTIL20 for 20% off the life of your membership at farmraise.com. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this content, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes from Patreon member Richard Schuler, who writes, quote, "Hello, Jesse. This is my first year working full-time at my farm, Teacher's Farm, Zone 7A in Western North Carolina, after having worked at it part-time for 2 years. This year, I put a rye and vetch cover crop in my caterpillar tunnels in the fall. The amount of biomass it generated was great, but I thought that the flail mowing and a shallow tilling would kill the crop. This was hardly the case. I ended up doing a deep tilling, which resulted in my cedar getting jammed up with debris when it was time to plant spring root crops. I put it in a black tarp to smother the remaining rye, but I need advice on cover crops to proceed directly sown crops. I've watched all your videos on cover crops and come to the conclusion that buckwheat is probably my best bet. Do you have any advice on what cover crop produces the best soil texture for a Jang cedar?" End quote. All right, great questions here, Richard, and bummer about the rye and the vetch issue. So what we have done in a situation where we want to terminate a cover crop early, like rye, is indeed mowed it twice, once, 1 week apart, raked it off both times, and then did a shallow tillage with a power harrow to break up the roots and raked it again. Some of that still came through a little bit. For the most, I would say killed 98% of it. But yeah, so a little bit of regrowth even then. Now, I should also say our Jang cedar has the double disc opener, which is a big reason we've been able to get through slightly trashier soils if we're direct seeding, but also we're not generally direct seeding after all that work on the soil. We would generally be transplanting after that particular situation. Now, the reason I use so much past tense there is that I just try to avoid that situation as much as humanly possible because it's a lot of work and it's kind of hard on the soil and it loses a lot of those benefits of the cover crop. It's more of a pull lever in case of emergency type of tactic and less of an approach. But plans change, and if you need that garden bed at a certain time, that's the best option we've found for sure for immature cover crops that isn't just mow it and till it in and then wait several weeks. So I feel you. It's a challenging situation. Now, to set you up for the future so you don't have to do that again, to proceed directly sown crops. Buckwheat is a good one indeed, but you wouldn't obviously be able to use that over the winter like you do rye and vetch. It's like basil, a no-go in the cold. Instead, you could try something like field peas over the winter and maybe buckwheat for the summer. These are relatively easy to terminate, though the peas do create a slightly thicker root mat near the surface, so I'm not sure that planting immediately after that would be as easy without the double disc opener especially, but they may be winter kill if you open your tunnels on the coldest nights there in Western North Carolina. If not, a low mowing should do the trick. Every situation is different, though. You may need to slightly harrow the surface to ensure you get the seed bed that you were looking for that seeding. Cover crops in particular are tough with direct seeding because of the biomass above and below ground, but it can be done with the right planning. And again, that double disc opener add-on for the Jang can't plow through thick residue, but helps a lot when there is some trashiness to contend with. I'm still hoping to get my hands on one of those seeders that can plant directly into thick mulch I think they're made in Africa, but haven't had it in the budget just yet. I would love to see an option like a push seeder that can handle heavy residue in the American market for small scale growers. And maybe there's one already that I haven't seen yet. So feel free to comment with that name, and remember that links often get, they just disappeared by YouTube. So just write a name. Maybe that'll work better. Anyway, I hope that's helpful, and the best of luck to you this season. Let us know how your cover crop to direct seeding goes this year. Otherwise, going to take a quick break, and when we come back, water. Be right back. Today's episode is also brought to you by Farmhand. I started a CSA to grow food and build community, not to drown in admin work. Spreadsheets, emails, and pack lists take up too much time. If I could spend less time at my desk and more in the field, that'd be a win. Enter Farmhand. Farmhand automates billing, newsletters, websites, and member support, saving CSA farmers 20-plus hours a week. Focus on farming, not paperwork. See how Farmhand can help. Book a one-on-one demo with founder Ari at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. All right, so this weekend, and honestly the last couple of weeks in my spare time, I've been nerding out on the Netherlands, but not Johan Cruyff and not the agriculture, at least not solely the agriculture, but on the water. The agriculture in the Netherlands is impressive without question, and the football is awesome. And I've talked before about how this is one of the leading producers of agricultural products in the world, despite the fact that you could fit like 2.5 Netherlands inside of my home state of Kentucky, a state that is ranked 37 out of 50 in terms of its land mass in the U.S. So anyway, the Netherlands also has one of the highest population densities in Europe. But the reason I want to talk about the water management is fascinating to me because this is a place where a quarter of the country is under sea level and only a third of it is above sea level, with its highest point around 1,000 feet above sea level. So basically, you have this country right on the sea sitting basically eye level with a bunch of water, packed with people. I mean, it really just kind of wants to be a giant pond. But the Dutch have been obviously dealing with this reality for centuries, and not only have they built dikes and various water systems to manage the excess water, but have spent a lot of time preparing the country for rising seawater. They have been measuring the sea levels for about 130 years, since 1890, and the sea has risen about 7 inches, which when you're a force like the sea is quite a lot. So effectively, some of the systems that had been built were not working or would not be working soon, so a ton of energy and effort is being poured into how to manage a very vulnerable, low-lying country with a lot of people in it. And what I've found, refreshing about the answers they've come up with is that they aren't just about keeping the water out, though that is definitely part of it, but it's also about letting the water in and figuring out how to live with it. So one example of this is the government paying farmers to flood their lands with river water, which, at least for the farmers in the story that I was reading and some of the videos that I watched, welcomed this plan for the fertility it added to their fields for grazing. Another is building low-lying areas in cities where flooding is very prevalent, like the Water Square in Rotterdam, which in dry times is a skate park and soccer pitch and also a basketball court, I think. And I also think there's a dance area. When the water comes in, it starts raining or whatever, this area fills up like a couple small ponds to give the water somewhere to go. They are also putting a strong emphasis on floating houses, floating neighborhoods, and even a floating farm, which, to be sure, is of course not a Dutch invention, but an ancient concept from Thailand to the Chinampas in Mexico and elsewhere. But it's very cool. It's very modern how they've done it. But anyway, I love this sort of philosophy of not always trying to fight water or fight with the elements that work against you or are sort of creeping in on your farm or life, but rather to some extent working with them, letting the water in, as they say. That would be looking for not only the silver lining, but perhaps the opportunity in a given obstacle. Maybe this is something farm related, like intense wind or heavy rainfall or a pest or whatever, figuring out how to live with those things. But maybe it's something personal, like basically everything in parenting. Video games are an easy example that come to mind. This is one we've come up against because video games are a big big part of our kids' peer groups. One's knowledge of video games is basically like a currency to children, and entirely cutting them off only creates unnecessary tensions. So we've looked for ways to utilize this love of video games in a way that keeps their screen time low by limiting the playing time while achieving our goals with them as parents and satisfying their desire to play. And we keep the game list of games, we view as relatively constructive, such as things like, Minecraft. In effect, we do construct some boundaries, but also we let that water in, so to speak. We let them play some video games and work with it instead of just like trying to fight it all the time. Anyway, that's what I've been chewing on this week. How about you all? Does this idea resonate at all of letting the water in? Are there ways of farming or life that you have let the water in and sort of worked with it instead of just constantly trying to fight it? Let us know. But real quick, we're going to get a word from one of our show sponsors, Rimmel Greenhouses. Whether you're growing tomatoes for market, flowers in the spring, like maybe some tulips, like you're in the Netherlands, or vegetables for your family, growing in a high tunnel protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse or high tunnel investment. Visit Rimmel.com today to get growing. Don't forget we are now, that is to say no-till growers, are now officially a 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Find info for that in our show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you are getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and the team over there at No Till Growers. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook or the Seed Farmer over there at no-tillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or for the month of April, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to, it's our monthlies. Steve Larson, Fiona and Donnie of Firefly Farm, Vesolaya Gardens, Cedric Reed, Bill Price, William Wiley Madro, Richia Grant, Wish I Started 20 Years Ago. Almost got that one wrong. Wish I Started 20 Years Ago. Not a common name. It's a common accident. Dwight Yoder, Honey Works, Lynn Tompkins, Steve Hurlbut, Rebecca S., Mark Ravenel, Lee Shelley, Brian McCarthy, Larry Shepard, Martian Cindy, DP, Kat Brannigan, Little Row Farms, Hank Zecca, Ashley Sharp, Jill Crosby, Scott Roser, Norsk Guard Farm, Laura Britton, Alex Savatsky, Alberto Diaz, Peter Brode, Jason Ruel, Earth Care Farmer Jane Murner, Derek Page, Meredith Light of Granite Springs Farm, Grown Up Farm, Bob and Ann Patton of Hexhamshire Organics, and Jared Kirst of Rivendell Farm. Okay, so with no new signups yesterday, the Earthworms coming in clutch for a story today. We'll see if we get another one tomorrow. But anyway, this week, the monthlies are all working at a cooperative grocery store in New Hampshire when a wizard appears in aisle 5 where the chips and crackers are, that aisle. Long white beard, pointy hat, the whole bit, right? And the wizard starts, it looks like he's starting to cast a spell, and the monthlies are all like, do we stop him or just see where this goes? And then all of a sudden, a small temple rises up through the floor of the shelves, making a complete mess of things. Then the wizard enters the temple and then descends into the ground again and disappears. And they all agree, maybe we should have asked him not to do that. But anyway, you can find Cleanup on Aisle 5 wherever you get your non-existent YA literature. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you tomorrow for the day before Thursday. Should be called Hundre. Yeah, it's not.